Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then please subscribe, tap on the like button, and feel free to be part of the conversation by simply sharing your views in the comment section down below. Now, of late, there has been a debate of some African Americans saying that they prefer being referred to as Americans and not African Americans because some feel they have no ties to Africa whatsoever because they were born and raised in America. So how then can they be African? Now, today's video is more like a continuation to this because in contemporary discussions, a subset of the African American community holds the belief that the original Native Americans were black. Now, note that this viewpoint does not represent the entire African American community, as perspectives within any community are diverse and multifaceted. But this belief challenges conventional historical narratives and sparks conversations about the intersectionality of racial identities and the complex histories that have shaped African Americans. So join me as we explore this intriguing perspective and get into the historical context that fuels discussions around the origins of Native American heritage. For now, check out these videos as different people share their own views and understanding on this. I will be right back.
Africans were here before the Europeans. So what do you do with the heads in Mexico that you find at San Lorenzo, at Tres Zapotes? What do you do with those? You ignore them. What do you do with Columbus's diary that says the Africans know a way to the west, but it goes around the doldrums, we would never survive? What do you do with that? You ignore it. What do you do with Balboa's diary that says we came upon this African village in the isthmus? How did these Africans get here? What do you do with that? You ignore it. Why? To preserve the myth that the Europeans were here first.
If we were really from Africa, America would have never told you. I mean, what's the point of taking someone's last name, taking mother away from daughter, taking son away from father, making sure they can't speak their language, making sure they don't know their culture, if you're just going to turn around and tell them the exact location where they're from in the first place? It just makes no sense. What makes sense is telling them they're from somewhere else so they won't connect to their actual land and heritage and culture. Think about it. Peace to the gods.
Hey everybody, so I wanted to do a follow-up video on this subject. I said that I would yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Before I get started, I want to make something very clear that in the first video I had said that this is from the African American community, and I want to make it clear that this is obviously a very small group of people, right? This is a very, very specific, super small percentage of people that come from this community that are talking and pitching this rhetoric. It's not inclusive of the entire community as a whole, and so I wanted to kind of clear that up a little bit. But the rest of the video still 100% stands, right? They absolutely believe that they are the original Native Americans and that we, as the brown Native Americans, are transplanted here from Mongolia or Siberia to kind of take their place. And they will use many examples to try to convince people that this is the truth. They will use the example that the Olmec statue heads have African features. They will use the old text from early explorers that describe Native Americans as having copper skin color and matted hair. And they will also use the oldest skeleton ever found in South America, which is the Luzia skeleton that dates back to about 13,000 years ago, which they claim to have African features as well. And despite all of this being completely disproven from many academics, archaeologists, and anthropologists, it doesn't really seem to matter. They're kind of caught in this illusion in kind of and unfortunately, because of this belief, they have really started to adopt a lot of, especially on social media, a lot of indigenous taglines, such as, hashtag native TikTok, hashtag indigenous, hashtag, whatever. They've even gone as far as to go into like Native American Heritage Month, right? And they kind of hijack that a little bit. It's really, in a lot of ways, it's really sad. I'm not going to speak to the experience of these people because I don't know what it's like. However, I think it's no stretch of the imagination to imagine that this likely comes from a very deep, deep place of trauma. It comes from a very deep place of misplacement, lack of identity due to the history of how they arrived here in the Americas to begin with. And so when you think about it in that sense, it becomes more of a tragedy more than anything for all sides involved, right? For everyone that's involved in this situation, it becomes a really sad scenario. The whole reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want to mention a few things about this. As they start coming into our places like this, where we're starting to see a little bit more conflict, they're so caught up in their belief that they are kind of they can be very aggressive with how they present this and aggressive with how they try to convince other people that this is true, especially towards Indigenous people. And that can sometimes not always lead to the safest of scenarios. I wanted to encourage everyone to always practice safety and caution as this becomes a more prevalent and front-facing issue within our communities and within our Indigenous spaces, especially virtually, and to protect yourselves. Always be safe, think of your families, think of your friends, think of those around you, and carry yourself in a good way. And the second part of this, which is as equally important in my eyes, that despite the things that they may say, and they say it in a derogatory way, right? I've been called a Mongoloid, I've been called a Euro-Asian, I've been called a $5 Indian, and despite all that, by nature, this is a racially charged conversation. But it does not mean in any way, shape, or form that as Indigenous people, it gives us the green light or the justification to be anti-Black. It does not give us a justification. It does not give us a justification to be derogatory towards them and their identity in any way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, I have seen that a lot, and I wanted to address that and say that we need to do better when it comes to those kinds of things. We can handle the situation in a better way. Protect yourself at all times. Don't let anyone railroad you and run over you, right? But I'm a strong believer that silence is compliance. So when I do see it, I do speak up. When they come around me, I do say something for the most part. But when I do, I always take into account my safety, and I always am careful with how I address and how I carry this conversation. And also to keep in mind those who are in both groups of people, by which I mean our Afro-Indigenous brothers and sisters. When this subject comes up, it can be very uncomfortable, and if we're not careful with how we carry this conversation, it can actually be extremely damaging, and they deserve our utmost respect and care as well. So I wanted to say that and share that with each and every one of you, and wish you all a good day, and stay safe out there.
You know what? I'm sick of y'all telling us that we from Africa. I'm really sick and tired. I keep bringing up these receipts of Native American indigenous hair texture right here. Check it out. You can say we from Africa all you want, but the truth is we was living in America. You understand?
There are a lot of my people and white people making videos saying that I'm incorrect on what I'm saying. Most of everybody believes that all nappy-headed people, black people, we all just came from Africa. That's the only place we were. There is an Egyptian temple in the Grand Canyon, which is in America, right? No one is discrediting the African heritage that some of us have. But we're not going to ignore that some of us walking around with my skin tone and who are labeled as African Americans are not descendants of natives. I'm brainwashed. I'm being disrespectful. I'm this, I'm that. We're all just descended from slaves. If you want to stay in that mindset, you can, but I'm digging. For the people who don't know who they are. You can go and research the $5 Indian yourself, since what I'm saying is a problem. I'm not telling anybody to believe anything I'm saying. I'm saying do your research. Let me know what you find. No one is discrediting any of the straight-haired Native Americans. I clearly said it's where they could have came from. You don't read much, do you? Spreading misinformation for why? What is the obsession with rewriting history? Rewriting history? Are you serious? Because a lot of things that they told my people, which was saying that we was only slaves and we didn't come from nothing. They didn't teach us about the Egyptians. They didn't teach us about anything that gave us any status of intelligence. Am I really just misinformed? Almost everything I said in the video was false. People just making things up at this point. Only straight-haired Native Americans can be validated as indigenous, right? Okay. In the video, I clearly said what if on the situation between black people and straight-haired Native Americans. If you want to believe that every black person is from Africa, you can. Unfollow me if you have an issue with anything that I say, because I do have a right to question things. Y'all stay dangerous. The Native Americans are the black people.
Oh dear, no. Let me help you out here, since African history is not taught in North America. There were many expeditions from Africa to the Americas, and the most famous one was by Mansa Abubakar II, the ruler of the Mali Empire. He believed there was a world beyond the ocean, so he called to his best minds to build a fleet of ships, and he sent 200 ships to look for the new world. There was enough food and water rations to last for 2 years, and he told them, don't come back till you reach the end of the ocean or till you run out of food and water. One ship came back, and the people aboard that ship told Mansa Abubakar II that all the other ships went into a river current and they disappeared out of sight, so they decided to come back. Mansa Abubakar took that as a sign that there was a land there. So in 1311, Mansa prepared 1,000 ships and put men aboard that ship. He prepared an additional 1,000 ships full of supplies and gold, total of 2,000 ships. On the second expedition, Mansa Abubakar II went with his crew, but he never came back. The thing is, there is no written account of his arrival. However, there is significant evidence suggesting that him and his crew did arrive in the Americas. In fact, Christopher Columbus himself wrote, based on the account of the Indigenous Americans, they said, black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats trading in gold-tipped spears. The Indigenous Americans called this gold spearhead guanine, which is actually an African word, a Mandinkan word which means gold. That was the language that was spoken in the Mali Empire, which is located right here in West Africa. When Africans set out to explore the New World, they didn't go there with the intention to colonize. They already had a lot of gold. Mansa Abubakar II went there with sailors, builders, thinkers, artists, traders. I think Mansa Abubakar II was vibing with the Indigenous Americans that he decided not to come back. Mansa Abubakar II had no reason to come back as he trusted his successor, Mansa Musa, which is another good story. In fact, Mansa Musa is the richest person in history and nobody beat his record yet. The magazine described Mansa Musa's wealth as richer than anyone could describe. Another magazine noted wealth incalculable. But yeah, the Malis and the Indigenous Americans were vibing, but black people are not native to the Americas.
Now, the native people of America, often collectively referred to as Native Americans or American Indians, are the indigenous people who inhabited North America, including the continental United States and its surrounding regions long before the arrival of Europeans. They comprise diverse ethnic groups with distinct languages, cultures, and histories. It's important to recognize the rich tapestry of indigenous cultures that existed across the continent before European colonization, each with its unique traditions, practices, and contributions to the development of North America. Now, according to research, the history of relations between Native Americans and African Americans must be understood within the context of the greater forces that brought African and Native American peoples together. These forces varied greatly over time and space. No easy generalizations are possible. However, one factor regularly brought the two peoples together from the 16th through the 19th centuries: European and American exploitation of Native Americans and African Americans. Slavery had its roots in Africa and America as well as Europe. Native American societies had practiced slavery before the arrival of Columbus, but it was nothing like the severely exploitative and racialized form of slavery that arose in the West Indies and the southern United States. Like Africans, Native American peoples accepted that enemies captured in war could be treated as slaves. In Native society, a slave was basically someone with no kin to protect him or her from the demands of others. Without kin, these people had no recourse to justice and no one to avenge their unalivings if they were unalived. Now, although they were compelled to do hard work and undoubtedly were mistreated, slaves in Native societies were not exploited as systemically and intensively as those in European colonial societies. Finally, few Native American societies in East and North America viewed slavery as a permanent condition passed on from one generation to another. Children of enslaved captives, particularly if one of the parents was a free Native American, were rarely compelled to live as slaves. Now, Africans and Native Americans developed a history because Europeans forced them into contact with each other. In many parts of the Americas, particularly the greater Caribbean area, Europeans used Africans to work the lands they took from Native Americans. But this was not the case everywhere. In some regions, African Americans were used to force Native Americans to work for Europeans, a distinction ruled by demography. In areas with large subjugated Native American populations, Europeans Europeans compelled the natives to work for them. African slaves with no ties to native peoples proved to be useful intermediaries in this process. Thus, in many instances, Africans and Native Americans were pitted against each other in the greater interest of European colonial development. At times, Native Americans and African Americans found common cause in resisting the European colonial powers. As early as 1503, enslaved Africans on the island of Santo Domingo fled their masters to find refuge among Indians fighting the Spanish, establishing a pattern that would continue throughout the history of slavery in the Americas. Sometimes groups of escaped slaves called Maroons formed their own societies and allied with nearby Native Americans in struggles against Europeans. This happened as early as the 16th century in Panama and continued to occur in other usually geographically remote areas of the Americans. Occasionally, Native American groups adopted African Americans as individuals or small groups into their societies, much as they adopted palm color captives or defeated other groups of Native Americans. At least two new Afro-Indian societies, the Black Carib and the Black Seminole, emerged in the Americas in the mid-18th century. Each earned historical fame by fighting successful wars to resist Anglo-American attempts at expansion. The Black Carib on the island of St. Vincent in the 1770s and the Black Seminole in Florida in the 1830s. No Afro-Indian alliance had the power to stave off colonial expansion forever. Both the Black Seminole and the Black Carib were eventually displaced, losing much of their political autonomy in the process. Now, the Native American population is incredibly diverse, consisting of over 500 recognized tribes in the United States alone, each with its own distinct cultural heritage and languages. Their histories are deeply intertwined with the land, encompassing a range of lifestyles from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled agricultural societies. Tragically, the arrival of Europeans in the Americas led to significant disruptions and challenges for Native American communities, including forced relocations, diseases, and cultural clashes. Despite this, Native Americans have persevered and continue to contribute significantly to various fields, from art and literature to environmental conservation and activism. Efforts to preserve and revitalize Native American languages and cultures are ongoing, highlighting the resilience of these communities in the face of historical injustices. Now, some African Americans asserting Native American ancestry might be influenced by a variety of factors. Historically, there have been instances where enslaved African Americans formed connections with Native American communities, resulting in intermarriage and cultural exchange. This has led some individuals and families to maintain a belief in Native American heritage. In a broader context, claiming Native American ancestry may also reflect a desire to connect with a heritage that predates the traumatic history of slavery. It could be a way for individuals to affirm a more diverse and complex identity, asserting connections to multiple aspects of their ancestral background. However, it's essential to note that such claims should be approached with nouns and validated through genealogical research or tribal affiliation, as cultural identity is intricate and assumptions about ancestry can sometimes lack historical accuracy. Now, these discussions also touch upon the broader themes of identity, heritage, and the complexities of understanding one's roots in the context of America's diverse history. The assertion of Native American ancestry among some African Americans also intersects with the broader historical and social context. In the United States, Native American identity has been romanticized or idealized, and individuals might be drawn to this identity for various reasons. This could include a desire to distance oneself from the painful legacy of slavery or to find connections to a perceived indigenous heritage that predates colonization. It's crucial to recognize the complexity of identity formation, especially for communities with histories marked by displacement, slavery, and cultural assimilation. The idea of having Native American ancestry has sometimes been passed down through family stories, contributing to a sense of connection with a specific cultural heritage. Now, as these discussions unfold, it's important to approach claims of Native American ancestry with respect and consider the diversity of experiences within both the African American and Native American communities. Validating such claims often requires careful genealogical research and, in some cases, collaboration with Native American tribes to ensure accuracy and authenticity. Now, let's note that there is history which says Black or African Americans were from Africa, and now there's this claim of Black people being native to America. So I decided to do this video because I'm getting a lot of messages in the comments saying that I should do more research on this, and this is what I've found. I stand to be corrected, so share your comments in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.